Now, it's no surprise that misinformation has spread online following the Hamas attack on Israel. And, of course, Israel's response with airstrikes. Two sides continue to battle. But do you believe what you read online?
Yeah, during a major event like an armed conflict, for instance, many social media users share misleading or baseless claims, including miscaptioned imagery or altered documents in an effort to, I suppose, shape the people they're trying to reach.
Well, let's talk to a man who knows all about this sort of stuff. That's Andrew Eborn, who's here. Morning, Andrew.
Morning.
Look, the first casualty of war is the truth.
As they always say.
It's always been the case. But in the modern age, the lies can appear very convincing.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing is not always believing, and that's the key sort of message. And what they have now, the people within their armoury, is all sorts of things. Artificial intelligence, which I'm always talking about, how you can make people say anything in any stage. You can.
That's terrifying.
Isn't that terrifying? And you can have audio clips. Slovenia, which is their election, 2 days beforehand, there was neck and neck, but there was a released audio about a discussion with one of the candidates talking to a journalist about how to rig the election. And it turned out that this was entirely fake. So this particular candidate lost and it went to the other side. It might have been the first election decided by deep fake. So the key to that is make sure, because you can get images. You had Zelensky, you might remember, I spoke about this beforehand, surrendering to Putin in a video. So AI is one of the big things to watch out for. But it's not just AI. And there's a number of examples where you can get doctored images. And I've got a few which I've been digging every single day. They're sort of fake news stories. So you get altered documents. There's one about Biden, which was issued about where he pledges $8 billion of military aid to Israel, and it looks official and so on and so forth. $8 billion, which would have been a huge thing released. What actually, this document is false. It was actually originally approving $400 million for Ukraine on July the 25th, 2023. And basically, they posted all of this out there to spread that disinformation. The other thing you get is obviously things which are miscaptioned. So when it basically happened on October the 7th and the paragliders went in, there was footage showing, basically, it says Hamas gunmen can be seen paragliding into Israeli music festival and launch massive drone attack. Well, this was the thing. Again, this was miscaptioned because this was old footage, and actually what it was basically Egyptian paratroopers were skydiving at an Egyptian military academy in Cairo. So you'll find a lot of these sort of patterns and things where documents are either altered or they're miscaptioned.
But the problem is with this, and this is the perennial problem with social media, that someone posts it knowing it's wrong, but the people who see it and repost it don't know that they're posting lies.
Absolutely. And Elon Musk, he announced that on the Monday, he said there were about 50 million posts on X alone, all to do with the conflict. And the trouble is that's what happens. People look at these things. Some of these false videos are seen 2 million times and so on and so forth. And it gets quite alarming. So we would urge everybody, I'll talk about some tips in a moment, but all sorts of things, you've got to be really, really careful what you post. One of the most scandalous things is obviously, which hits the headline, is the use of children, either in defence mechanism or whatever. And there was a video, horrendous video, which was labelled with children in a cage, a chicken coop cage, which got millions of views. Here's the picture here. They've blacked that out, which was horrendous, and it looks horrendous, deliberately there. What happened, it was 5 children, apparently with somebody laughing at their predicament. And if you check this on things, what the ex-user who was called the Ocanist, I think his name was, he said, alleged footage of Hamas keeping children in cages. Why? What purpose does this serve? Are they Israeli hostages? 15 minutes later, he said, correction, they are Palestinian children being held in cages by Israeli law enforcement army officials. And what actually happened, neither of those were true. People looked at that sort of story, they looked at the footage, and it's actually posted a few days before the conflict even started. And what it was somebody playing around with their children, locking them up as a joke. And so if you look and you can do reverse image and so on and so forth to date it, you can look at that sort of side. So there are horrendous real images coming out of the conflict, but there are all these sort of fake things. And as we say, you know, the first casualty in war is the truth.
When you hear a news outlet say had this terrible report or terrible picture or something, video, You often hear them say, we are waiting verification.
Yes.
How do they verify that is real?
And there are three sort of ways that you have to do things. A lot of it is all about trusted sources. We're living in a very diseased information age at the moment where we're drowning in information, most of which is false. And what happens is you get all these conspiracy theories and so on and so forth, and people can edit footage and say AI has accentuated that problem. So basically, it's the who, what, why, when. So your starting point is who is behind the information? Who's telling you this story? And what we do is what's called lateral reading. So in other words, if you've got a story, you say, well, who's telling it? And then look at who that particular person is, their particular background, LinkedIn profile, if you like, other things they might have written. And you can correct it on that sort of basis. Because it's always about verified sources. And that's the problem. I say we live in a diseased information age where...
It's so dangerous, though. If somebody was to believe that picture of the children in a cage and believed that that had happened against their race or whoever, or their family, they're suddenly believing something which is absolutely toxic.
And it's deliberately, absolutely deliberately there to increase the tensions between people. So these things are being utilised. What I love about this programme is we unpack that. If people are aware of what happens, I always say question everything. You know, I'm a big advocate for AI, as you know, but we know you've had all sorts of fake imagery and so on and so forth, fake audio recordings coming out all the time, fake, and it's going to get worse on that sort of basis.
But are we reaching a point then, whereas, I mean, experts might be able to look at this sort of stuff and say, well, I can do my lateral thinking, I can sit down and work out if this is real or not. But for most of us, are we hurtling towards a point where if we see it on social media, just where it's just trending, that we just have to go, it's probably a lie?
Well, I think we can do better than that. I think people are, if you give them the tools to look at things, I mean, my best advice, always question everything. So look at the sources. I recommend to everybody, get your news from several different sources, and it's fascinating, flicking through the channels, always GB News in the background, but flicking through the channel, and you see how people do a different report on a particular story, because that will cloud your particular outcome. But if you look at the sources, you turn around and say, look, what's the evidence? If you want to look into something before posting something, say, oh, it's horrendous, these children are in cages. Of course it's horrendous. That's why they're trying to do that, clickbait. What you have to do is that real? And some of the times it's easy. This one was particularly date stamped. You can see when it was. You can also do what's called reverse with an image. You can do reverse searching if you like. So something called Google Lens or the tin eye. I don't know if you use that. I know Anne's an advocate all the time on this sort of stuff. But you can, But what you can do, you take a particular picture and you can search that on the internet, and it will tell you where it first appeared. And that's really helpful for helping with yourself. But the other thing is, look, just keep an open mind. Question everything. Don't just blindly swallow the information that you're given.
And that's the trouble with social media, isn't it? So many, particularly youngsters, only look at what they want to look at on social media, don't they?
Yeah.
And they
it's
almost
an echo chamber.
Yes, it is an echo chamber for what they want to believe.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I think what I like as the sort of regular thing is I say this is happening every single day. I've given a few examples here. And I sent loads to the producers because every single day news stories are coming out. I say 50 million posts on social media on the Monday following the conflict. And a lot of that you've got to turn around and say they're going to look for the clickbait. They're using these old footage, AI and so on and so forth. Really, really dangerous.
Yeah, it is. Andrew, it's really good to see you. Thank you for unpacking that for us. We'll see you very soon.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's a great term, that, isn't it? Unpacking. Unpacking the news.
Coming up for you, a new theme tune for an iconic show. We'll find out what in Headline Makers in a moment.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to ordinary